One of the many challenges in game development is to create an experience that has just the right amount of difficulty to create a kind of flow state for the player. But these games are intentionally difficult and can sometimes infuriate us, but still motivate us to keep on going. And I always wanted to see if I can make this type of game myself. And what better time to try out new things than in a game jam, right? So earlier this year I participated in the Pirate Software Game Jam 16, where I had to create a game in 14 days with the theme You Are the Weapon. 14 days is a pretty generous amount of time, so I wanted to challenge myself even further and dabble into a genre I usually don't dabble into for my games. Rage games. But I didn't want to just create a rage-inducing game, but also a game that is fun to play. And more importantly, find the right balance between rage and fun. So more like a fun skill-based platformer. Let's see if I manage to do that. Okay, the 14 days deadline started, and I immediately jumped into brainstorming and designing the game's concept. So what do I need for a rage game? In the style of, for example, Getting Over It. 1. The player needs to climb up to get to the goal. 2. We need some special controls, like using the mouse that controls the hammer with which we drag ourselves across the map. And 3. It has to be difficult.
The vertical wall here has a way of getting it harder the more times you try it. I think anger makes you swing the hammer harder, and that can push you away from the wall.
Okay, with that in mind, my idea was to make a challenging skill-based physics platformer where you play as a sword, since the theme is You Are the Weapon, and your goal is to reach your master up in the sky by jumping and swinging your way to the top. And I call the game Sword of Mine. Okay, now for movement. When our sword sticks to the ground with the tip, the player can balance or aim the sword with horizontal mouse movement. To jump, we press and release the left mouse key to catapult our sword in the handle's direction. How far our sword launches into the air depends on how long we've pressed the jump key before releasing it. And then, when in the air, we can swing our sword around the handle. This can help us, for example, to grab onto ledges and pull ourselves up. And that's it for the core gameplay mechanics. Now, to make it a bit more fun, I also wanted to add different types of platforms that will change how our sword behaves. I wanted normal or regular platforms that you can stick onto, wall jumping platforms that are just regular platforms but sideways, moving platforms that are again just regular platforms but moving, power jump platforms that increase our jumping power, and finally, icy or slippery platforms that will let our sword slide across them. And that's it for our gameplay mechanics. Now that I have a vision in my mind, let's head into Unity and start creating the game. So first, I created a placeholder ground with a box collider and a placeholder sword, which is just a stretched cube, and gave it a rigid body and a capsule collider, since we're going to apply forces to our sword. Then I changed the camera projection from perspective to orthographic to create this 2D looking game feel. Okay, now let's start creating the sword's movement. For that, I wrote an input manager that gets our mouse movement, a player script for our sword, and a player move script that will move our sword. Okay, now first, let's create our ground movement. To simulate that, I froze all positions of our sword so that it won't move away when we apply forces to it. And for the rotations, I only enable the rotation around the Z-axis. And I also moved the center of mass to the tip since I want the sword to rotate around it. Then, to make our sword rotate with our mouse, I use the X value of our mouse delta movement multiplied by a force value and add the force as a rotation force to our sword. And we get something like this. Okay, it works, but it feels awful to control. I won't leave it like that, but since it's the first time making a game like this, I have to slowly feel my way to the right solution. Okay, next I implemented a simple ground checker to check if our sword's tip is on the ground or not. And I also implemented our jump mechanic. I want the player to be able to control the jump strength depending on how long the jump button was pressed down before releasing it. And then, when releasing it, we shoot our sword into the direction the handle is facing according to the jump strength. Then, right before jumping, we remove our constraints of the X and Y axis so that our sword can actually jump. And we also shift the center of mass to the sword's handle, which allows our sword to now rotate around the handle. And when landing back on the ground with the tip, we reset all the values back to the ground settings, which lets our sword again be able to rotate around the tip. Alright, we are slowly getting there, but it feels really floaty to control. Quite bad actually, but that's okay, for now. Okay, before I fine-tune the movement to make it feel really good, it would be wise to replace the placeholder sword with the actual sword smash and its actual collider. And that's what I did. I replaced our cube with the real sword smash, and I also started implementing 3 different platform types. And now we have this. And now we have this. The regular platform acts like the ground. The slippery platform adds a velocity value to our sword depending on its current velocity when landing on the platform. And the power jump platform increases our jump strength by 50%. Okay, nice. But the controls, they're just horrible. I can't describe how horrible they feel. Oh man, I mean, I wanted to create a rage game, but also a fun one. But these controls would just infuriate everyone. I mean, yeah, you could say that's the purpose of a rage game, but I don't want it like that. But hey, we are still at the beginning, and we have enough time to fine-tune everything to make it feel good. Wait, what? I wasted 5 days for this? Is this my limit? No, not this again. Let's stay focused and think. How can I save some time to make up for all the lost time? The platforms aren't done yet, the controls feel clunky, and I haven't even created one level. And I also need a nice looking environment for each level. Oh, Honey, hey, wanna play something like The Sims and build some cool environments?
Warum redest du auf Englisch?
And she was instantly hooked. Okay, after I gave her a short 30-minute crash course in Unity and some assets, she went on and built this cool environment divided into 3 different visual levels through the course of the jam. Now that I wouldn't need to worry about the game's environment, I could fully concentrate on fine-tuning the gameplay. And basically all the rest, but still, a big help. Okay, then let's continue. And I gotta be honest with you, after 5 days of horrible controls, I was kinda fatigued on trying to understand why it felt so unresponsive and horrible. I just needed a break. So I decided to work on anything else. First, I created some tutorial images and placed them into the level so that the player can learn the controls while experiencing the game. Then I implemented a win condition. The goal is to reach the hand in the sky, which will grab the sword and pull it into the clouds. This triggers the thank you for playing screen, and with it, the end of the game. Next, I implemented a music manager with 3 music zones, one for each future level. Whenever the sword touches one of the trigger colliders of the music manager will fade out the current music and fade in the corresponding music of that music zone. And I also implemented an SFX manager that handles all the sound effects in the game, which currently are just placeholder sounds. Okay, now to have our... Yeah, you're right. I can't procrastinate any longer. I have to take on the controls. First, I set the rotation velocity to 0 whenever we land on the ground, so that our sword stays still after landing and does not keep swinging. Then I limited the maximum rotation velocity so that something like this doesn't happen anymore. Afterwards, I tackled the real problem, the wobbliest controls on planet Earth. And after digging real deep, I finally found the culprit. It's mouse delta. Let me explain. As I said before, to move our sword, we get the current mouse delta value, meaning the distance the mouse traveled in this frame, and add the rotation force to the sword according to the horizontal mouse movement. Now let's check what delta values we get for each frame when moving our mouse from left to right. Okay, we see here that even though I didn't stop the mouse mid-travel, we get some delta values in between that are 0. And that's the reason why the controls feel so unresponsive. In one frame we add a force to rotate our sword, then suddenly no force for 2 frames, then again a force, and then again no force. So to fix that, I used a hack. If a delta value is 0, I use the last non-zero delta value instead to move our sword. But if we have 3 consecutive frames a delta value of 0, then the probability of our mouse not moving is pretty high, and thus we will use a delta value of 0 for our movement. And just with that, our sword's movement feels so much better. Finally! Now let's make a game. First I finished creating and fine-tuning all the different platform mechanics for the game. And I also gave them their actual sound effects. Nice, then with these platforms I created all 3 levels. And with that, we basically have now a fully playable game. Yeah! Alright, now the last things I needed to do are to add 3 songs, an intro cutscene, and do a lot of fine-tuning and bug fixes so that the gameplay feels nice. Great! And we still have enough time left. Maybe this time I won't have to stay up all night and work for 27 hours straight. And I was right, I won't, because this time it's 28 hours. Okay, final stretch, let's go! Another strange bug I had to deal with was that whenever the framerate was low, my sword moved faster, and whenever it was high, it moved slower. What? It took me some time to figure it out, but at last I finally found the culprit. Mouse delta? Again? Seriously? It's okay, it's not entirely your fault. It's because of mouse delta and the discrepancy of how often update and fix update gets called during 1 second. Let me explain. Fix update per default gets called 50 times during a second. Update on the other hand gets called as much as your PC can, so once per frame. Now let's say our game runs at 50 FPS, so the same as fix update. In each frame we get our mouse delta value, so the distance of our mouse traveled in 1 frame, and fix update takes this value to use it for our physics calculation on our sword. But what happens when we double our frame rate? If we double our frame rate, then this means that each frame is only half as long as before. And since mouse delta returns the distance traveled in one frame, then we only get half of the mouse distance when our fix update checks for mouse delta. And so our sword gets half of the force added to its movement. And the more frames our game runs at, the smaller the mouse delta value gets. So how do we fix this? One way would be, and this is what I did in the end, set in Unity that I want the input system to be processed in fixed update instead of update. And that fixed it. For now. Okay, now that we handled the biggest bugs, let's complete the rest. First I created a small cutscene where the master in the sky calls for a sword.
Rise into the sky and aid me in battle. One last time.
Next I added 3 songs into the game, one for each level. And then finally I tweaked the sword's movement and the collision detection and handling of each platform so that the gameplay feels nice. And I'm basically finished. Now let's just build the project for WebGL, upload it to itch.io, add some screenshots and a thumbnail, and then after a quick playtest I am finally... Oh no, the controls! What is happening? Seems like my framerate fix doesn't work in WebGL. The PC build worked fine. I tested it with different frame rates and all was good. But WebGL just ignored my fix and made the sword just so fast it was unplayable. So I headed back into the code, and after wasting a lot of time finding the right way to solve this, I decided to, again, just hack it. Just hack it! And I don't recommend this, because it is always better to find the root of the problem instead of hacking a pseudo solution into your code. But I created a WebGL movement fix variable that, depending on what platform the game is running on, has a different value that changes the movement speed. Not happy with that, but I was running out of time. Okay, but finally, after all this, I uploaded the final version to itch.io and I was finally done. Yay!
Yeah! Nice!
The game jam is over, and I unfortunately didn't win. But that's okay. More importantly, did I achieve my goal in creating a fun skill-based platformer? Let's check out the comments and also an official jury review of the game jam. There were not many comments, but all in all, the game was well received. And this part here made me really happy, because making everything feels nice was such a hassle. And what did the judge say? The camera scoots way too much around. Okay, gotta fix that. And the control of the sword is too slow. Oh, you see, that's why you don't just hack things. Maybe the WebGL movement fix didn't work on the judge's machine as I intended. Oh hey, but it was frustratingly enjoyable. And all in all really well made. Cool! Thanks to everyone who reviewed or commented on my game. And you know what? I really want to make a full game out of it. So if you want to test it out for yourself and see if you can finish the game, by the time this video comes out, I will have created a fully polished demo version out of the game jam version that you can check out on Steam. And if you like, you can even wishlist it. Links in the video description and in the pinned comment. Okay, that's it with this video. If you like what you saw, then why not leave a thumbs up and maybe a nice comment? That would really make me happy. And if you're going to play my game, please let me also know your thoughts in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. Until next time, ciao. Hey, you're still here! How nice of you! If you'd like to see more of my game dev journey videos, then why not check out my video on how I survived my first 48-hour game jam here. And if you want to see some Unity tutorials, then fear not, I got you. Just check out my tutorial playlist here. Alright, thanks again for being here. And if you like, check out the Sword of Mine demo. I really hope you have fun playing it. See you next time. Bye bye!